Hello, welcome back. It's Rachel with Living the Journal Life. I am so excited that you're here. Today we are going to continue our How to Use Your Hobonichi Cousin series with focusing on these weekly pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a whole bunch of ideas. I'm going to show you my actual cousin, and then I'm going to show you some spreads that I did. I photocopied my cousin, so Sunday's a little cut off, but it still works out and we can still talk about the different ways you can use it. So whether you're brand new to the Hobonichi Cousin or you've been using it for a long time and just maybe want to change things up or do a refresh, there should be something for everyone. I'm going to leave timestamps, so if you're not interested in a particular subject, you can just move on to something a little bit more your style. So let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is scheduling. I think this is a pretty common way to use this spread. There are numbers down the side, which is time, so it goes through the whole 24 hours of the day, which is great if you work a graveyard shift or your schedule is very up in the air. You don't work a 9 to 5. Some days you're working, in the morning, some days afternoon, sometimes you have the swing shift. It's a really great way to lay out your week beforehand. It's also great if you have children or a lot of appointments that you have to get to, because you can lay it out like this. You can easily see where your appointments are, where your routines are, and all the things that are coming up, and then you know where you have time to get all the other stuff of life done, because we all have the other stuff too. And speaking of other stuff, you could just use this as a great to-do list. I feel like I've seen a lot of people do this in a variety of different ways. So if I was just going to use this as a straight up to-do list, I would probably break it up into different categories. So on this one, I broke it up with work at the top, home in the middle, and self-care at the end. And that way I can make sure that I'm getting all of the different to-dos that I need done in 1 week or in 1 day, and it's all laid out there, and there's plenty of time or plenty of space for other things. And of course you could choose whatever categories that work for your life. I've also seen, such as Jen from the Planner Files, she's on Instagram and here on YouTube. She does her weekly pages in her cousin, and she gets rid of the days and just has a master sort of brain dump to-do list, and she breaks it up into little different sections, and she can see all of the things that she needs to do, and the stuff she doesn't get done that week, she moves on to the next week. So to-do lists are a very good way to use this spread. Next up, let's talk about a hobby journal. Now, I'm using reading as an example here because that is my hobby that I would need to take notes on. So on Monday, I said that I started the fourth wing, and I wrote down the pages that I read that day, a quote, and then a little note like, oh my goodness, it was so tense. The next day I wrote down the pages that I read, and then another quote, and then did a note that I hadn't read on these other days. I put a washi at the top so I can say, oh, I only read 3 days this week, and look, I had a really busy weekend, and then I can look back at the quotes. This is just something that is really easy and really free form if you have a project centered hobby like crochet or knitting or quilting. Then you can write down what projects you're working on, how long, materials, any money you spent, things like that. So it really depends on the hobby, but this would be a great place to keep track of notes on your hobbies. Next up, let's talk about social media tracking. This one is very kind of specific if you're making social media into a side hustle, or you're one of those people that say you're just on Instagram, you want to share your photos, you take a bunch of photos and you forget to share them. So this is for someone that's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I put a to-do list at the top of all the things that this hypothetical person needed to do. I am not on TikTok, so, take everything written here with a grain of salt, because I have no idea what goes on there. I watch videos, I don't make them there. So on the sidebar, I did a little tracking with a start and end of statistics of followers. If you're just on YouTube, you could do watch hours, followers, comments, things like that. This is, again, going to be pretty specific to people that are just making social media kind of a side hustle or their main hustle. Next up, we're going to talk about health tracking, and I'm going to give you a few different versions because, it's everybody's setting up their new planner, and you might have different priorities. So this is going to be kind of 3 different people and how they approach health planning. So this first one is going to be people that are keeping track of their food, their workouts, and taking notes maybe on anxiety, pain, energy level, mood level. You know, at the bottom, you can really make that note section into anything you want. So this is someone that is just trying to stay active and stay on top of what they eat. I was going to put some like fake macros there, but honestly, I have never paid attention to macros, so the numbers would be silly because I couldn't even. You can keep track of your weight, you know, just sort of general New Year easy health tracking. Now, the second sort of person is someone that is probably tracking these for more of a self-care point of view, or you're trying to get data. Say you have migraines and you're trying to see what day pain days correlate with what mood or how much you slept or how much self-care you're doing. There's a spot for gratitude. So this is someone who's kind of maybe a little bit more stressed out and trying to track something, or you just really want to make sure that you're getting that gratitude. You're still moving your body, but you don't care about food as much as sleeping well and how your mood is and how your pain levels are. So this is just sort of another easy way, few extra stickers to just sort of lay out your health. And third, I wanted to show you how I actually used my Hobonichi Cousin as a health tracker. So this is what I do in my health journal, and I just moved it to my Hobonichi Cousin. So at the top, I like to keep track of the weather because sometimes the weather will definitely affect my pain and what I can do. Those top dots are all my sort of established routines that I'm trying to make sure that I do: meditating, my AM routine, journaling, taking my blood pressure, PM routine, PM meditation. That middle section is how I take care of my cats, so making sure that they get some playtime, they get brushed, checking their litter, stuff like that. And then the bottom section is really a place for notes and where I can put in health-related appointments. So it's a really great and sort of versatile section where I can write down things that happened that I wasn't expecting. Say I twisted my ankle and that made the rest of the week weird, or I went to see my orthodontist, or things like that. I got some blood results back. So it's a very versatile section. Next up, let's talk about memory keeping. And I really love this idea for the Hobonichi Cousin on this weekly spread. And because it's pretty versatile, so I use just a pen, some washi, and my thermal printer to print out little tiny pictures of my life. And these are actually from this week in my life. But in the future, I added snow and some made up things that I really hope we get in January. But what I really love about this section is that it's not an overwhelming, it's not a daunting amount of journaling or memory keeping. It's not a big blank journal. It's one little column, and even if you write small, even if your handwriting is particularly small, it's not an overwhelming amount that you have to dive into. So it's great if you want to dip your toe into memory keeping and you're little like, well, there's not that much going on in my life. We all take little pictures every day. You slap 2 pictures on there and you write 2 sentences. So it's a great place for memory keeping. And lastly, I wanted to show you how I use my spreads for a mix of planning and memory keeping. So if you've been around for any length of time, I have tons of videos about how I use these weekly pages. And what I usually do is I set up the stickers, I put in my appointments, so it's sort of a pre-planning. And if I'm using checklists for that week, I will sometimes put in like my cleaning or things that I know have to be done on a specific day. If I'm not using checklists, it's pretty much just appointments. And then every day at the end of the day, I go in and I fill out what I did that day. So it's a pretty good mix of pre-planning, things that are coming up. I can see my appointments, I can see what I need to do, and then the rest of it is what I actually did. So a little bit of memory keeping and habit tracking, stuff like that. This is what works for me. I have chronic pain issues and some disabilities that mean I can't pre-plan my life out. I really wish I could be one of those people that would plan something and then stick to it, but I never know what my life is going to be like when I wake up, and I know that there's a lot of people out there like that. So if that is you, you might try this. Plan the things that are kind of set in stone or that would be a pain to move, like your appointments, and then let the other stuff sort of come as it will. And that's when my daily pages really come into effect, because that's where the to-do lists happen. And for some reason on my daily pages, most of the time, I don't mind a big old to-do list, because if it doesn't get done, it just gets moved to the next day. So we'll talk about the daily pages in the next video. And I just wanted to say a big thank you. Welcome to all the new people. If you haven't subscribed, I see you. You keep watching the videos. Give us a subscribe, and we will see you next time.